It's 1963 in war-scarred Volgograd. A lone figure stands among shattered brick and twisted metal, the air heavy with silence. In the distance, the colossal statue of the motherland calls looms over a bare hill. All around, the city's scars of battle lie open to the cold dawn. Here, the past and the present blur. An old veteran, once a young soldier, walks carefully through the ruins, his eyes haunted. He has come home at last, but his home is full of ghosts. The wind carries faint echoes. Is it the cry of a child, the footstep of a comrade? The city breathes around him, as though alive with memory. A camera angle sweeps past a broken window and into a blood-stained room. The war is over, but nothing here is peaceful. The soldiers who died are everywhere, on the walls in crumbling murals, on gravestones in forgotten corners, and in the nightmares of those who survived. The veteran pauses at a cracked photograph of a Soviet family. Fingers tremble on the frame. In the summer of 1942, the Germans came to Stalingrad like a thunderstorm. Day after day, waves of bombers turned the city to rubble. Every street became a graveyard. Every home, a fortress. Soviet soldiers and civilians huddled in basements as whole blocks exploded overhead. One survivor recalled, the massive bombing began on August 23rd. In 2 days, the city was destroyed. The earth literally trembled. Buildings collapsed on top of people. The ground rumbled with each barrage. The Volga River's banks glowed with oil fires, a sheet of flame that consumed everything in its path. From sidewalk to skyline, nothing remained of the bustling industrial city of 1941. By winter, what was left of Stalingrad had become a death trap of ice and hunger. Soviet and German troops fought inch by blood-stained inch through the rubble. Caught in the ruins, they clawed at walls for cover, set up machine guns in the craters, and charged across desolate squares under bursts of flame and shrapnel. Armies lost entire battalions in a single afternoon. The famous grain elevator stood like a skeletal tower in no man's land. Fierce combat around it left tens of thousands dead at its feet. Across the city, key buildings changed hands in savage cycles of attack and counterattack. Banks, factories, schools, and theatres. Neither side showed mercy. According to official tallies, over 2 million lives were torn apart in those months. More soldiers than any battle in history. Over 1 million Soviet defenders were killed or captured, along with hundreds of thousands of Germans and their allies, and nearly 500,000 civilians. Entire neighborhoods were wiped out. In some districts, not a single building withstood the assault. The cost was almost too vast to grasp. Every burned-out block held dozens, sometimes hundreds of bodies. After the guns fell silent, scores of mass graves lay unmarked beneath the ashes. Even now, in peacetime, the dead rise. As soon as the snow begins to melt, one volunteer said years later, we start digging for soldiers' bodies. Behind the front lines, the horror was just as complete. Civilians had nowhere to go. Stalin's order forbade most evacuations. Families hid under blankets in bomb shelters, sharing precious scraps. One 11-year-old girl, Valentina, remembered crawling through the ruins to scavenge potatoes by the river. Her mother filtered poisoned water while fighting off frostbite. They even boiled clay just to chew on some vaguely sweet earth. In their makeshift cellars, many asphyxiated during explosions. One child was found clutching clumps of her own hair after choking in darkness. Stalingrad's winter was an endless nightmare of smoke, blood, and starvation. Nothing about this place was natural. Amid this inferno, strange things happened. Men whisper that when the shells fell silent, uncanny sounds filled the city. In the dead of night, the survivors reported hearing distant weeping or strange whispers echoing through empty buildings. Some said the dead crawled out of their mass graves as ghostly drafts or flickering lights. Eyewitness accounts of the battle read like tales of the supernatural, but they came from men and women who were there. For example, at the height of the fighting around Lisea Gora, the Bald Hill, a young lieutenant later wrote of an impossible encounter. A bandaged German soldier appeared out of the darkness, staggering through the trenches. He clutched a revolver, shouted a single desperate command, then dissolved into thin air before the lieutenant's eyes. To the man who saw it, it wasn't a living enemy at all, but something unreal, a spectre of the battlefield. Others say similar things. One doctor claimed to see wounded men rise from the stretcher in front of him, only to fade away when he blinked. We even have tales from after the fighting. In 1944, a railroad worker claimed he found a rusty helmet on the tracks. When he picked it up and looked inside, it was empty. Later, every time he boarded that train, he felt eyes staring at him from under the carriage. Such stories abounded in wartime journals. One sniper wrote in his diary of a phantom mimeographed leaflet that fluttered down into his trench. He was sure an enemy pilot had printed it, yet it held no text, only a bloodstain in the shape of a cross. A Soviet tank commander swore that his own dead gunner visited him as a vision on the frozen Volga's edge, smiling and giving a thumbs up before vanishing under the ice. Whether these were true ghosts or hallucinations from exhaustion, the effect was the same. Soldiers on both sides grew convinced the city itself was alive with spirits of the fallen. Even with the guns roaring overhead, people spoke of Stalingrad's ghosts. One secret city radio station broadcast a hoax, playing cries and footsteps between propaganda songs. German troops heard it, and many refused to leave cover for fear of invisible enemies. In ruined apartment blocks, Red Army scouts sometimes reported seeing a child's face in a broken mirror, or hearing piano notes on a deserted piano stool. Perhaps it was grief speaking through the smoke. Whatever it was, the sense grew that the dead here did not rest. In this nightmarish siege, both Soviet and German soldiers clung desperately to faith and folklore. In a place where death seemed random, any rule or ritual felt like survival. Not one step back was Stalin's order. and men took it literally. Red Army troops often carried religious icons, medals blessed by priests, or simply a lucky coin. They crossed themselves before a charge and made pacts with each other. If we both survive today, I'll tell your wife you said hello. One Siberian courier swore by his grandmother's wildflower charm, claiming it had protected him through 10 battles. At night, many would creep to the Volga's edge and pray beside the frozen river for deliverance. Nazi ideology officially denied superstition, but the men still had old habits. Some officers forbade whistling indoors, a wartime superstition that invited disaster. Others refused to salute or light a cigarette after sunset, believing it would offend the spirits of the land. Many mention seeing omens. German diaries speak of men refusing to move if a lone crow flew overhead, or standing perfectly still when a cat darted in front of their tank. In camp, some soldiers consulted fortune tellers over letters from home. One tale tells of a private who kept a journal of each body he killed. As the list grew, he became convinced each victim would return to haunt him at night. The interminable cold and starvation also had psychic effects. By winter's end, both armies saw surges of combat exhaustion, what the Germans called Kriegsneurose. Soldiers trembled for no reason or sat motionless, eyes glazed. Some went mad from the cold. There are reports of men waking in trenches and freezing to death, convinced they were already dead or that dawn had come. Starvation led to hallucinations. Red Army medic logs mention a tank crew that struck their own engine block with hammers, believing it was a Russian cavalry horse in the moonlight. Other men became strangely calm. One German lieutenant, near breakup, calmly sat on a ruin and laughed to himself. No one knew whether he was insane or in deep shock. It said through the final days, messages came from Stalingrad itself. Flickering lights played across the broken windows, leading men into ambushes. The wind in Mamayev-Kurgan sounded like a long, thin Russian wail. In private letters sent home, some German soldiers described a burning city in which the dead walk, and even the stones have eyes. Soldiers' nightmares grew vivid. They dreamed they were alive again in peaceful fields, only to wake into another day of fire. Certain sites in the city became focal points for these ghost stories. Pavlov's house, that battered apartment block held by Sergeant Pavlov's 24 men for 58 days, turned into more than legend during the war. Afterward, locals whispered of strange phenomena there. It's said that if you stand by its rusted bas-relief of Soviet soldiers, you might see a flicker out of the corner of your eye. A faint, misty human shape stepping out of the stone sculpture itself. People claim the engraved face of Pavlov sometimes smiles, or even nods at passers-by. Police on the site reported their radio crackling with static whenever they approached at night. Whether these tales are true or spirits of imagination, many Volgograd residents tell of Pavlov's house as if it garbs its own secret history long past the battle. Nearby on Mamayev-Kurgan, where the famous bronze motherland statue now towers, ghosts of another kind are said to wait. Hundreds of thousands died on this hill and its slopes, Even now, guards at the memorial say they have seen shadows among the unknown graves. One tour guide speaks of unusual apparitions that claim to guard the hill, though locals jokingly say those ghosts have vowed not to show themselves until the year 2095. Campfires on nearby Lisaya Gora, the adjacent flat top, sometimes fall silent at midnight because one student claims a spectral Soviet soldier once appeared in his path, wounded and asking for a light, then vanished before they could even blink. Folk songs and poems of the post-war era even evoke Mamayev as a place haunted by perezhivshi, survivals doomed to wander. And then there are the sewers. During the siege, Soviet assault detachments literally fought through the underground, crawling through dark, flooded tunnels to flank the enemy. In those claustrophobic labyrinths, many died unseen. Men slipped on icy walls and fell on their bayonets, or suffocated in the black water. After the war, city workers repairing old pipes sometimes reported hearing strange wails echoing from the depths below. Though experts say it could be just wind and rats, a few urban explorers decades later swore they felt a presence in those tunnels, an inexplicable chill brushing past them, as if corpses were shifting behind the stone walls. There are no news reports to confirm any ghostly apparitions in the sewers, but to those who know Stalingrad's history, even the idea carries weight. Underneath the city, 1 million souls might lie awake. War ended, but Stalingrad's ghosts did not leave. In the years after 1945, the city that had been leveled was rebuilt brick by brick. Yet everywhere on the new streets, one could still find shards of the old hell. Farmers found bones when ploughing in the outskirts. Construction crews laying new water mains or apartment foundations regularly exhumed the dead. It became so routine that people joked old soldiers still patrol the drainage ditches. In fact, every spring, as snow melts, volunteers comb through the earth for any remains. One demolition team found a mass grave under a bus depot. Another uncovered German helmets and skulls while repaving a road. City planners estimate hundreds of thousands of bodies still lie undiscovered in unmarked pits beneath Volgograd's foundations. Along with the bones came stories from the new generation. In the 1960s, a watchman at the Panorama Museum, the great cylindrical Stalingrad battle panorama, reported being startled by the sound of marching boots in the empty rotunda. In the 1970s, a bus driver swore she saw a column of barefoot children in tattered clothes walking silently through the park at night. No source of light, but she could hear them hum an old soldier's hymn. Paranormal investigators began to visit. In the alleys around Pavlov's house, ghost hunting groups claimed to have recorded odd disturbances. Static sounds, footsteps on empty hallways, even a whisper saying, "Koda Guniv, brat," "We're gone, brother," on a cold tape loop. No one can verify these recordings publicly, but for many in Volgograd, they feed the legend. There is also something chilling about the city's war museums and cemeteries. In December each year, Soviet scouts and veterans return to the Red October district to lay wreaths. They say that in the quiet of the winter morning, as the eternal flame burns, one sometimes hears a soft chorus, soldiers singing their last march beneath the snow. In Mamayev Kurgan's Hall of Fame, people leave behind little gifts, icons, letters, even war medals, as if the fallen might answer. Even the new All Saints Church near the top of the hill took on a bittersweet purpose. Some locals tell a curious story, that it was built because so many children reported seeing ghostly soldiers around the old battlefield, and pray work was felt necessary to give them rest. Each eyewitness account, each rumour, reinforces the city's haunted reputation. War correspondents who visited often noted a white-knuckle air among survivors. One reporter wrote that the spirits of the dead seemed to roam freely through Stalingrad's bombed-out streets. Survivors themselves, now old and wrinkled, sometimes shiver unaccountably when passing certain landmarks, as if some memory still leaps out to greet them. Why does Stalingrad feel so haunted even today? The answer lies not in fairy tales, but in history. This city, more than almost any other, paid the ultimate price. The sheer scale of death, so many lives extinguished in such a small area, hoards the land itself. Millions of stories ended abruptly here. Sons, daughters, mothers, soldiers, and civilians alike. Their voices lie buried beneath the asphalt and rubble. As long as there are bodies to dig up and monuments to guard, Stalingrad will never fully let go of them. In Volgograd now, people often say it is a city of ghostly memory rather than of living bustle. Every year on Victory Day, the silence around Mamayev Kurgan is tinged with tears and reverence. The air almost seems to carry whispers of the fallen back into the world. Travellers report that at night, walking by the Volga, they sometimes feel the chill of winter 1942 brush past them. Psychologists say this collective trauma can pass from generation to generation, colouring all that came after. So are the ghosts real? That question remains as open as an empty rifle pointing skyward of someone who's already gone. Maybe they are. Whether they drift through the dark on winter nights or simply echo in the minds of those who endured the horror, Stalingrad's dead are not at peace. As our veteran guide in the opening scene places a red carnation at a forgotten grave, he hears, or imagines, a faint murmur in the wind. It might be the ghosts of the city, or it might be nothing more than the sigh of history. But in Stalingrad, they say, even the walls have ears. And so the city remains haunted, an eternal testament. No one here truly left without carrying a part of that hell inside them. The last shot has long since been fired. Yet, in the silent ruins of Stalingrad, the ghosts of war still walk among the living.